The Varen ship drifted in the endless dark. Its engines were dead. Its lights flickered like the last breath of a dying star. Inside, the air was thin, heavy, and cold enough to bite through skin. Koresh, leader of the Varen people, stood by. A shattered viewing window. Beyond the glass, stars hung like frozen sparks. The silence was heavy, so heavy it felt like it was pressing down on his chest. There were no voices over the comms, no rescue signals, only the low hum of the failing life support system. It had been 22 days since the Galactic Union abandoned them. They had called the Varen a burden. They had cut off all supply lines, shut down their trade routes, and blocked their calls for help. The Union had sent no ships, no food, no medicine, nothing. They had simply turned away. Koresh could still remember the Council's cold words. The galaxy cannot carry your weight. You are on your own. After that, the stars seemed to grow colder. The Varen ship, once a proud colony vessel carrying thousands, was now a tomb in motion. Many had already died in their sleep quiet. Painless deaths from lack of oxygen. Those still alive moved like shadows, their bodies thin, their eyes dull. Even the children no longer cried. They just sat in silence, staring at the floor. Koresh had tried everything. He had sent distress signals in every known frequency. He had begged passing ships for help, but they ignored him. In the lawless corners of space, everyone knew helping the abandoned meant angering the Union, and no one wanted that. By the 23rd day, the food stores were empty. The last oxygen tank was almost gone. Koresh knew they had less than 2 days before the ship became completely silent forever. He stood at the central console, staring at the flickering signal screen. No one was coming. Not this time, then. Something happened. A small blip appeared on the radar. Koresh frowned. It was faint, almost invisible against the background static. At first, he thought it was just debris drifting by, but the blip grew stronger. Closer, the comms crackled with sudden static. For a moment, Koresh thought it was another cruel trick of the failing systems. Then a voice spoke. It was calm, steady, and strange. It was not Varen. It was not from any Union race. It was deeper, slower, as if the speaker was choosing every word with care. Hold on. You're not alone. The sound cut through Koresh's chest like a blade. For a second, he couldn't breathe. He looked around the control room. The other crew members froze, their thin faces lifting, eyes wide with something they had not felt. In weak hope, Koresh leaned closer to the comms mic. "Identify yourself," he said, his voice shaking. There was a short pause. Then the voice returned. "We are human. We are here to help." Koresh blinked. Humans. The name was familiar. Had heard of them before. A young species in galactic terms, not yet fully respected by the Union. They were known for being unpredictable, stubborn, and strangely loyal to those they called friends. But why would humans come here? Why would they risk angering the Union? For strangers, before Koresh could ask, the blip on the radar split into 3, then 5, then 8. Small but fast ships were approaching, each sending out a short-range beacon. The signals were warm and bright on the radar, like embers in the dark. The crew gathered at the window, watching as the human ships came closer. They were unlike Union. Vessels smaller, bulkier, but moving with sharp, deliberate precision. No hesitation, no fear. The comms crackled again. "We have medical supplies, food rations, and repair drones. Prepare for docking." Koresh's mind raced. It could be a trick. It could be pirates pretending to help, but the human's tone was different, firm, almost defiant. As the first human ship latched onto the Veron vessel, the docking clamps shook the entire hull. The airlock opened with a hiss, and figures stepped through. They wore dark suits with clear visors, revealing pale skin and determined eyes. One of them, a tall man with short hair, stepped forward. "I'm Commander Reed, of the Earth Alliance Navy," he said. "We got your signal." Koresh stared at him. "You came, why?" Reed's answer was simple: because no one else would. The humans wasted no time. They moved through the corridors, carrying boxes of oxygen tanks, water, and sealed food. Packs. They set up medical scanners and administered shots to the weakest survivors. They didn't ask for payment. They didn't demand allegiance. They just worked in the dim corridors. Koresh watched as one human knelt beside a Veron child, handing her a silver packet of food. The child took it with trembling hands, her eyes wide. When she bit into it, she began to cry, not from sadness, but from the shock of tasting something real again. Koresh's heart tightened. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to believe that survival might be possible, but in the back of his mind, a question still burned. Why? Why were humans here? What did they stand to gain? Commander Reed approached him later, his face grim. "We need to talk," he said quietly, "because I think you should know the truth. The Union didn't just abandon you. They want you gone." Koresh's breath caught. "Gone? What do you mean?" Reed's eyes were cold. "There's a fleet on its way. Not to rescue you, to finish what they started." The words hung in the air like a shadow. The silence in the stars no longer felt empty, it felt like it was waiting for something. Something deadly. Asterisk, the corridors of the Veron ship smelled of cold metal and stale air. That smell was changing now. The humans moved quickly through the narrow halls, their boots clanging against the floor, their arms full of crates and equipment. Koresh walked beside Commander Reed, watching every detail. The humans were nothing like Union aid crews. Union workers, when they came, arrived with lists, contracts, and strict orders. They would check identifications, ask for payments, and sometimes leave if the terms weren't met. These humans asked nothing. They simply worked. The first thing they repaired was the oxygen system. Within hours, the air felt lighter, cleaner. Veron survivors began breathing easier, the constant tightness in their chests easing. After that, the humans brought heat back to the ship, restoring the low hum of life support. Koresh noticed something else. The humans were not afraid to touch his people. Union medics always wore thick gloves and kept a careful distance from alien patients. These humans knelt beside the sick, wrapped blankets around them, and even offered water from their own bottles. It was strange, and it was making the crew uneasy. One young Veron Shirin whispered to Koresh as they passed, "Why are they helping us? What do they want?" Koresh could only shake his head. "I don't know," he said, but deep inside, he wanted to believe the humans meant what they said. In the cargo bay, a group of humans unpacked food rations, silver packets, stamped with the crest of something called the Earth Alliance. When the smell of hot food spread through the ship, some Veron began to weep silently. They hadn't smelled real food in weeks. Reed walked over to Koresh, handing him a small device. "This is a portable comlink," Reed said. "You'll be able to contact me directly with it. No Union tracking." Koresh studied the device, then looked at Red. "You speak as if the Union is an enemy," he said carefully. Reed's face hardened. They are your enemy. They always have been. You just didn't see it until now. The words sent a ripple of unease through Koresh's mind. For decades, the Varan had believed they were part of the Galactic Union family. They had followed its rules, paid its taxes, and fought in its wars, and now, abandoned, like they never existed. The sound of metal striking metal echoed through the ship. Koresh turned to see a human engineer sealing a crack in one of the bulkheads. He worked fast, his hands steady even in the freezing air. These humans seemed to have no hesitation in facing danger, no matter how severe. Later, Koresh followed Reed to the docking bay, where 3 more human ships were unloading supplies. Reed spoke quietly as they walked. "We picked up Union fleet movements 3 days ago. They're headed here." Koresh stopped. "You came here, knowing they were coming?" "Yes," Reed said without hesitation. "That's why we're here before them. If they reach you first, there will be no survivors." Koresh felt the air around him grow colder despite the heat being restored. The Union wasn't just abandoning them, they were sending a fleet to destroy them. But why? As if reading his thoughts, Reed explained, "The Union sees the Varan as a failed investment. You cost them resources without giving them political or military gains. They think removing you will save stability." Koresh clenched his fists. "We are not a disease to be removed." Reed's eyes met his. "Then you'll have to fight. And if you're willing, we'll fight with you." The humans worked into the night cycle, fixing engines, patching hull breaches, and recharging the ship's shield generator. They used tools Koresh had never seen before, compact, efficient, and designed for speed. It was clear they had done this many times before. Still, the Varan were nervous. Some feared the humans would use them as leverage, trade them for political favor. Others thought it was a trap to lure them into slavery. But when Koresh asked Reed directly, the human simply said, "Your people need a future. The Union wants to erase that future. We won't let them." That night, Koresh stood on the bridge, watching the human ships orbiting close to the Varan vessel. They looked small compared to Union warships, but there was something about them, like predators, ready to strike. On the second day, a human pilot named Lyra took Koresh to her ship. The interior was cramped but functional, every inch used for something important. "This is not a warship," she said with a faint smile, "but it can bite if needed." She showed him the targeting systems, the maneuvering thrusters, and the emergency jump drive. "We move faster than they expect," she said. "That's how we win." Koresh realized then that the humans weren't just here to help them survive, they were here to prepare them to resist. But against the Union, that was madness. As they spoke, a warning light flashed on the console. Lyra's smile faded. "They're coming," she said quietly. Koresh's heart pounded. How soon? Too soon. She opened a comm channel to read. "We've got incoming. Union fleet. Multiple signatures." Reed's voice came through calm but firm. "Positions, everyone. Remember, keep their attention on us. The ship is priority." Back on the Varan bridge, Koresh felt the entire ship tremble as the humans positioned themselves between the Union approach path and the drifting colony vessel. They were placing themselves directly in harm's way. Some of the Varan crew stared at the display in disbelief. "They're going to die for us," one whispered. Koresh watched the human ships forming a shield wall, their weapons warming up. And for the first time since the abandonment, he felt something powerful. Not just hope, not just gratitude, but the burning ember of defiance. If the humans were willing to risk everything for them, then maybe the Varen could stand again. The Union fleet was still minutes away, but the tension was already crushing. Koresh gripped the comlink Reed had given him. He knew that whatever happened next would decide the fate of his people forever. The stars outside the Varen ship looked peaceful. Too peaceful. That kind of stillness was like Koresh knew it. The radar screen showed them like dark ghosts, moving in formation. The Union fleet was coming. 15 warships, each one big enough to crush the Varen vessel in minutes. Koresh stood beside Commander Reed on the human flagship's bridge. The air inside was tense but focused. Human crew members moved with quick, precise motions, checking weapon systems and recalibrating shields. No one was panicking. They were preparing for war. Reed leaned over the main console. "Fleet status?" he asked. A young human officer replied, "Shields at 98%. Plasma cannons online. Torpedoes loaded." Koresh frowned. "You can't win against 15 Union warships," he said quietly. Reed's jaw tightened. "We don't need to win," he said. "We just need to hold them back long enough to get your people out of here." Koresh's thoughts raced. The Varon's ship wasn't battle-ready. Its engines could barely maintain a crawl. Even if they ran, the Union ships would catch them in hours. Reed seemed to read his mind. "That's why we're going to give them something else to focus on," he said. Us. The Union fleet came into view. Their ships were sleek, silver, and armed with more firepower than the Varen had ever seen. Their formation was tight, disciplined like a wall of steel and fire. Koresh's stomach churned. He had fought in Union skirmishes before, but never against their full military power. This wasn't a rescue mission gone wrong. This was an execution. The Union commander's voice came over the open comms, cold and emotionless. "This is Commander Voth of the Galactic Union. Stand down and prepare for boarding. The Varen are to be taken into custody for relocation." Reed's lips curled into a thin smile. "Relocation," he muttered. "That's their word for extermination." He switched on the human comms. "This is Commander Reed of the Earth. Alliance Navy. You will not touch these people. Turn your fleet around." There was a pause. Then Voth's voice came again, laced with contempt. "Earth Alliance. You are an insignificant upstart species. Do not involve yourselves in Union matters." Reed's reply was calm but sharp. "We just did." The tension in the room thickened. Koresh could feel it pressing on his chest. The Union ships began to spread into attack formation, their weapons glowing with deadly light. A human crew member turned to Reed. "Sir, their forward batteries are charging." "Hold position," Reed ordered. Koresh blinked. "Hold. You're not going to fire first." Reed shook his head. "They want us to panic. If we fire too soon, we lose the element of surprise." Koresh looked at the human ships on the tactical screen. Small, compact, and heavily outnumbered. It felt like watching a pack of wolves stand against an army of armored beasts. The Union ships advanced. One of them broke formation, moving faster, too fast. "Decoy," Reed said. "They're trying to draw our attention so the others can." "Flank," he gave a sharp order. "Lyra, take the horizon and swing wide. Cut off their flank before they can close the gap." The comm crackled with Lyra's voice. "On it, Commander." Koresh watched as the horizon shot forward, weaving through the void with impossible agility. It wasn't brute force, it was precision. The human ships weren't built to outgun the Union. They were built to outthink them. The first shot came. From the Union, a blazing bolt of plasma tore through space, narrowly missing the horizon. The blast lit up the bridge in a brief, ghostly glow. "Return fire," Reed ordered. Human cannons roared to life. The shots didn't aim for the Union ship's main hulls. They targeted weak points, sensor arrays, and shield generators. Small hits, but each one calculated to disrupt the enemy's rhythm. The Union fleet responded with a storm of plasma fire. Shields flared under the impact, alarms blared, and the bridge shook violently. A human officer called out, "Shields holding." At 63%. Koresh gripped the console. How long can they take this? Reed's eyes didn't leave the display. Long enough. On the Verone ship, the crew watched the battle from the safety of their dim corridors. Some prayed, some cried, others stood frozen, staring at the glowing shapes outside the windows. Sheeran stood beside one of the windows, whispering, "They're fighting for us. They don't even know us, but they're fighting for us." Back on the flagship, Reed's voice cut through the chaos. "Signal the Dauntless. Prepare for the maneuver." Koresh glanced at him. "What maneuver?" Reed's eyes narrowed. "One they won't see coming." The Dauntless, one of the larger human ships, suddenly broke formation and dove straight toward the Union's lead vessel. Union fire rained down on it, but it kept going, engines blazing red. Koresh's eyes widened. "They're going to ram." At the last second, the Dauntless launched a spread of high-yield torpedoes at point-blank range. The blast ripped through the Union ship's forward section, sending it drifting. Half-dash destroyed. The bridge erupted with cheers, but Reed didn't smile. "That's one down," he said. 14 to go. The Union fleet hesitated, regrouping. They had underestimated the humans. That hesitation bought precious seconds the humans used to reposition. Drawing the Union away from the Verone ship, Reed turned to Koresh. "This is your chance. Get your people ready to move." Koresh's throat tightened. "Move where?" Reed's voice was low, almost grim. "Anywhere but here. Because the Union will keep coming until one of us is gone." Koresh looked out. At the battlefield, at the tiny human ships darting between giant Union warships. For the first time, he realized this wasn't just about saving the Verone. This was about sending a message, and that message was clear. Humanity does not abandon its friends. Asterisk space lit up like a storm. Bolts of plasma and streams of bright energy cut across the black, painting the darkness in flashes of deadly light. The human ships darted between the Union warships, moving like wolves circling a herd of giants. Koresh stood on the bridge of the human flagship, the resolute. The deck shook under his feet with every blast that hit the shields. The humans moved, with quick precision, calling out weapon status, shield strength, and incoming vectors. They did not waste a single word. 2 Union cruisers breaking off. "They're trying to flank us," shouted a young officer. Reed's voice was steady, sharp. "Shift formation. The Horizon and Vanguard cut them off before they get close." To the Verone ship, Koresh glanced at the tactical display. The Verone ship was still drifting far behind, weak and defenseless. If even one Union vessel broke through, his people would be gone. The Horizon swept in, engines blazing bright blue, spinning hard to intercept the cruisers. Its plasma cannons fired in quick bursts, targeting the Union ship's shield emitters. The Vanguard came in from the other side, forcing the cruisers to turn sharply. The trap worked. One cruiser collided with a chunk of asteroid debris, spinning out of control. Koresh's claws gripped the console. "You fight like you've done this before," he said to Reed. Reed's lips curved into a faint smile. "Because we have. Only difference is, this time, it matters more." A deep rumble shook the Resolute. The lights flickered. "Shields at 42%. Called another officer. Reed didn't hesitate. "All forward batteries. Target their weapons arrays. Give me everything we've got." The Resolute's cannons roared to life, sending a blazing arc of fire into the nearest Union destroyer. Explosions rippled across its surface, tearing off armor plates. The destroyers returned fire missed by meters, the shot burning harmlessly into the void. But the Union was learning. Koresh saw it, their formation tightening, their attacks coming faster, more coordinated. "They're adapting to your tactics," he warned. Reed's expression darkened. "Then it's time to change the game." A voice came over the comms. It was Lyra from the horizon. "Commander, we've got one of their carriers exposed. Recommend a deep strike." Reed hesitated for only a heartbeat. "Do it, but you'll only get one shot." The horizon broke. Away from the main battle, flying low along the surface of the carrier, Union defense guns lit up, filling the space around it with deadly fire. But the horizon twisted and rolled in ways the larger ships couldn't follow, payload armed. Lyra's voice came through. 3, 2, 1. The detonation ripped through the carrier's hangar bay, sending a cloud of burning debris into the void. Fighter craft inside were destroyed before they could even launch. Koresh felt a strange surge of pride for these humans. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and yet they refused to break. Then, the Union flagship moved forward. Its size dwarfed every other ship on the battlefield. Koresh's chest tightened as he saw its main cannon charging, a sphere of blinding energy forming at its core. Reed's voice cut through the air. "All ships' defensive positions. Do not let that shot through." The humans shifted into a tight shield wall, their smaller ships clustering in front of the Resolute and the Varen vessel. Every cannon fired at once, desperately trying to disrupt the flagship's charging sequence. The Union shot came anyway. A beam of raw energy cut through space, smashing into the human line. One ship, the Dauntless, took the hit directly. Its hull split apart in a burst of white fire. Koresh's throat went dry. They sacrificed themselves. Reed's voice was low but fierce. "They bought us the seconds we needed. Now we hit them back." Rage flared in the humans. Movements, the Vanguard and Horizon dove forward, focusing all fire on the flagship's forward section. The Resolute followed, unleashing a spread of torpedoes that slammed into the enemy's shield generators. The flagship's shields collapsed in a brilliant cascade of sparks. Reed didn't hesitate. "All ships target their bridge. End this." A storm of plasma fire tore across the flagship's surface. Explosions rolled through its structure like thunder. Finally, the massive vessel began to list, fires consuming its decks. It drifted, powerless, before vanishing in a silent eruption of light. The sudden absence of the flagship shattered the Union's formation. Their remaining ships began to retreat, covering each other as they jumped out of the system. A deep, stunned silence filled the Resolute's bridge. Red exhaled slowly. "Status of the Varen ship," a human officer replied. "Minimal damage. All life signs stable." Koresh felt his legs grow weak. He had been prepared to watch his people die. Instead, they were alive because these humans had stood in the way of the galaxy's greatest power. Hours later, in the quiet aftermath, Koresh walked through the Resolute's docking bay. The surviving crew of the Dauntless were gone lost in the battle, but their names were being recorded into the Earth Alliance's honor rolls. Reed stood near one of the supply crates, his face unreadable. Koresh stopped beside him. "You didn't have to do this. You could have left us, like the Union did." Reed looked at him. "That's not how we do things. You're alive. That's what matters." Koresh's voice was heavy with emotion. "You fought for us. Now we will fight for you." Reed gave a small nod. "Then maybe we just change the galaxy." Far beyond the battlefield, in a shadowed Union Council chamber, Commander Voth stood before the ruling ministers. His voice was tight with anger. Humanity interfered. "They destroyed our flagship, and they will not stop." The ministers exchanged uneasy glances. One of them spoke softly. "Then we will make sure they regret it." The war, it seemed, was far from over. The battle was over, but the silence in space felt heavier than before. Wreckage drifted in the void-twisted metal, shattered hulls, and the cold remnants of ships that had once held life. The humans were gathering their dead. The Varen were counting their living. Koresh stood on the Varen ship's bridge, looking at the human vessels around them. Some were scarred, some missing entire sections of armor, yet they still moved with purpose. The humans had won not because they were stronger, but because they refused to break. A message came through the comms. It was Commander Reed. "We're sending docking tethers," he said. "We need to get you out of this sector before the Union sends reinforcements." Koresh nodded, though Reed couldn't see it. His people had spent weeks believing they were finished, but now they had a chance to breathe again. When Koresh entered the Resolute's briefing room, Reed was already there, standing beside a large holographic display. The map showed dozens of star systems, with Union territory marked in silver and human territory in deep blue. The Varen homeworld was gone from the map, wiped clean, as if it had never existed. "This is what they've done," Reed said quietly. "They'll tell the galaxy the Varen people were relocated. No one will question it." Koresh's throat tightened. "You saved us from destruction today, but what happens tomorrow?" Reed met his eyes. "That depends on you. The Earth Alliance can give your people shelter, food, homes, safety, but if you want to survive in the long run, you need more than that. You need allies. You need strength." Koresh's voice was firm. "Then we will fight. Not as beggars, not as refugees, as partners." Within hours, the surviving Varen were transferred to the human colony. Ship Ardent Horizon. Children marveled at the bright lights and warm air. Elders walked slowly through the corridors, their eyes still filled with disbelief. Everywhere they went, human crew members greeted them not with suspicion, but with respect. Sheeran, the young Varon Koresh had spoken to before, stood beside a human medic as she received a vaccination. "Why are you so kind?" she asked. The medic smiled. "Because one day we might be the ones who need help." Those words stayed with her. Later, Koresh joined Reed on the Resolute's observation deck. From here, he could see the stars stretch endlessly in all directions. But instead of feeling small, he felt something new: possibility. "You've given us a second chance," Koresh said, "and we will not waste it." Reed clasped his forearm. "Then we have a deal. The Varen and humanity together." Koresh tilted his head. "Do you realize what this will mean? The Union will see us both as a threat." Reed's smile was faint but fierce. "Good, let them." In the following days, the humans worked with the Varen to retrofit one of their damaged colony ships into a joint defense vessel. Veran engineers marveled at human improvisation, fixing critical systems with spare parts, welding armor plates taken from wreckage. Humans, in turn, learned the Veran's advanced sensor technology, which could detect ships hidden in nebula clouds. By the end of the week, the first Alliance guard ship was ready. Its name was chosen by both crews, Unity's Flame. When the ship powered up for the first time, Koresh and Reed stood together on its bridge. The hum of the engines was like the sound of a heartbeat. "This is only one ship," Koresh said. Reed looked out into the stars. "It's a beginning." Far away, in the shadowed halls of the Union High Council, the news of their defeat spread like wildfire. Some ministers were furious, others uneasy. Commander Voth stood before them again. "They destroyed our flagship and crippled a carrier. The humans fight without fear. And now they have allies." One minister hissed, "Then they must be shown their place." Another leaned forward, "Perhaps. But if they spread this defiance to other worlds, we may be looking at the start of a rebellion." Voth's voice was cold. "Then we will crush the rebellion before it begins." Back on the Unity's Flame, Koresh addressed both Veran and human crew members over the shipwide comms. "Today, we are no longer abandoned. Today, we stand as part of something greater than fear. The galaxy will learn that we are not alone, and we will never be alone again." Cheers erupted through the ship. The sound echoed through the metal walls, mixing Veran voices with human ones. Reed stood beside him, listening, and for a moment, there was no divide between their people-only purpose. Before the Unity's Flame departed, Koresh walked alone to the observation deck. He gazed out at the endless black and thought of those who hadn't survived to see this day. He made a silent vow to them: "Your deaths will not be forgotten. Your people will rise again." As the engines roared to life, the ship turned toward the far edge of known space. Its mission was not just survival anymore. It was preparation, because both Koresh and Reed knew the Union would come again. And next time, they would come with more ships, more weapons, and more determination to erase them. But the galaxy had changed. The Veran were not helpless anymore. They had friends. They had a cause. And somewhere deep inside the hearts of both species burned the same unshakable truth: humanity does not abandon its allies. On the far horizon of the star field, sensors detected faint signal ships gathering in secret. The war was not over. It was only beginning.